Hi, Wheatland family. I'm so happy to reach out to you again in the middle of our week to engage you, to encourage you as we continue our physical isolation, our social distancing. So much has been taken from us in these days that it's easy to forget that these days also create opportunities for ways of knowing each other that perhaps we didn't know before. That was why a few weeks ago, I invited Michael Rothermel in to this time in order to introduce you to him. He is the owner of Cursive Films, the one who has stepped in and done our live streaming each week. And so I was glad to introduce him to you. This week, we're in this Zoom format, which may not feel quite as nice as our other videos, because I want to have a conversation with Chuck Heath. He is the moderator of our diaconate team here at Wheatland. And oftentimes, many of you know Chuck, many of you have heard the name, maybe you don't know how to put that name with a face, and so that's what we're gonna do here in a minute. I'm gonna bring him in and we're gonna have a discussion with Chuck. But I feel like it would be good for us to highlight that team at this point in our life together. It's possible that there will be more needs. We want you to feel connected to our diaconate. We want you to feel connected to the leadership. So we want to introduce Chuck to some of you who perhaps haven't met him. So I'm going to bring him in. This should be fun because we haven't told him that we're recording this. I'm only kidding. He knows. Chuck.
Luke.
We're glad to have you. Welcome. Thanks for joining me and our Wheatland family today.
The pleasure's all mine. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Chuck, why don't you start by telling us, take a minute or so and tell us, introduce yourself, tell us about your family and how long you've been at Wheatland.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Chuck Heath. I'm moderator of the Deacon Board. I've been at Wheatland with the family about 7.5 years. We moved here from the Northern Virginia area, and we started church shopping at Wheatland and never tried anywhere else. So we've been here ever since. Wonderful. And I'm an architect and work from home. So my wife,
this is
daughter Olivia.
This is a very familiar format for you if you're working from home.
Yeah, so yeah, with this whole pandemic thing, in that I do work from home, it hasn't been quite as stressful for me as others, but I still feel the, that lack of intimate touch with friends and neighbors. It's challenging. Yeah,
it is. These are challenging days. We are grateful for the way that you've been part of our life here. I know you're involved in your care group in Lidditz, and of course the work that you do as deacon. And that's really why I have you here, because I want people to be able to put a name with your face, for better or for worse. No, but I thought we would start today. It sounds kind of like a crazy place to start talking about diaconal work, but I thought I would start by talking about our care groups, because part of the vision of the leadership for a long time has been that care groups are an essential part of caring for one another in our congregation. And they really do form like a first line of pastoral care and care for those who are part of our congregation. And I know you're involved in the Lidditz care group, but I just thought I'd ask you to share a bit about how our diaconate team encourages our care groups to be doing that, and then works with and supports them in their first responders sort of role that care groups play in our congregation.
Yeah, well, our goal is to support care groups, and we do that in many ways. Primarily, when a request comes to us, a care group member needs some kind of assistance. The first thing we'll do is try to understand the individual, how they fit into the church body, who they know, who's been working with them, and particularly who is in charge of their care group. And then we'll work with that individual to try to understand, are you familiar, and if it's appropriate, and try to get them into that care group if they're not already in a care group, try to encourage them to be involved in the care group. Because as you know, a lot of times these needs that come up have, greater need than just the individual need itself. It might speak to other kind of things that, where we can be helps in other ways. So yeah, we see the care groups. And the other thing too is that care groups, um, we want care groups to be aware that the deacons are available for help.
Hmm.
So care
Right.
group leaders should be aware, that there is a resource here.
Right. No, that's great. And as you've already hinted at, it's obvious that care groups can't meet every need that arises. Some situations are more personal in nature, and some are just more extensive in need than even a care group could meet. Um, so the Deacons Fund is supporting that, but the deacons do a lot more than just write checks. In fact, uh, I know that you all have been preparing once you guys sort of got the lay of the land of what's happening in these days with the economic shutdown. You all got together and started talking about, okay, how can we best be prepared to meet the needs in our own congregation that arise from this specific challenge that we're all facing? Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys have worked on along those lines?
Sure. Well, as you said, we did pretty quickly get together to try to figure out and kind of plan for what may happen, kind of contingency planning. So we had a Zoom meeting, I think, as soon as the whole quarantine was announced. We had a Zoom meeting quickly after that. And we began looking at what resources the church has, what resources the country has, what resources the state has, the local community, and just try to get our hands on, okay, when people come, what resources can we point them to aside from just the deacon fund? Because people may have much larger needs. So we started to understand, what's available in the way of rents and mortgages and how are the food banks doing? A couple of people that are in the team reached out to the food banks to understand, are you stocked or not? Is this a resource we should bring people to or not? And then, of course, we asked the pastoral staff to mention the Deacon Fund as if you're interested in helping with the COVID-19 situation, Deacon Fund's a good place to do that.
Right.
And we also just made some priorities and said, when we talk about needs that arise, first priorities are going to be food and shelter, and then other needs will kind of cascade down from there. So, we're trying to be a little bit more, keep a little bit more watchful eye on the Deacons Fund. Um, but frankly, we've been really blessed at the church. Now if you're hearing this and saying, "Hey, I've got a need here," please reach out. The Deacons
Yes.
Fund has not been, really utilized a lot at
Mm,
this point. So, as this drags on, we expect, more needs will
right.
arise. But, bless everybody's hearts for, working within their own communities and minding their own stores so that they can kind of weather this storm. But
Hmm.
Deacons Fund is there. Your fellow, members of the church give to that fund to help people.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not just supposed to sit there and gather dust. So
Yeah, we are so grateful for Wheatland, the way you have given generously and made it a point to make that a priority. So we're really grateful for that. Chuck, I guess one last question for you. We've said it over and over from the pulpit and in the bulletin and that sort of thing, but this is another opportunity. If there are those in our church family who are struggling physically, financially, emotionally, even, or otherwise, how should they get in touch with the deacons? What's the best way to get in touch?
well, there are a number of ways. You can reach out to the pastoral staff. They'll reach out to us. That's one way. It's a
Mhm.
very common way. A lot of times people
Yeah,
want to work
that's
with,
right.
and that's the first door. Another way is through diaconate at wheatlandpca.org. That's our website, not our website, but that's our email address that's monitored, all the time. We keep track of that, see what's happening. So that's another way to reach out. Um,
Yeah,
and probably the most direct way is to look up one of the names of the deacons on the back of the bulletin. There's
right.
somebody and kind of would feel comfortable talking to. You can go on to Lexio. I'm sure their phone number will be there. Reach out. That's what we're here for.
That's
Happy.
great. Well, Chuck, I'm so grateful for you taking time out of your busy quarantine binge watching of Netflix schedule. I know you've lost
Uh,
at least 2 or 3 episodes of something
yeah.
important for having been here today. No, I really am grateful for you, for your work, for the work of our deacons and our deaconesses. And Wheatland family, I wanted to invite you this week to join me in praying for our deacons, our deaconesses, our leadership teams as we all walk through this together. I think there's a real temptation for us to be ready to get back and put things back together under our own power, with our own resources, with our own cleverness, and all those things will be called upon in the future. But our first and greatest priority is to be prayerful and to go through these next months with a very humble and prayerful spirit, approaching God in prayer for all the things, all the tasks, all the work that lies ahead of us as a congregation. Wheatland family, I love you. I'm praying for you, and I look forward to being with you this Sunday at 10:45 for our live stream service.